Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Customer Combine Virtual Clinic. In this section, we're going to be talking about optimizing grain loss systems. My name is Pat Noble. I'm out of our Marion location. I am a sales representative as well as a Precision Ag specialist, and I will be your presenter today. We're going to start off with where on the ground grain losses come from. Grain loss is a very important subject because grain that doesn't make it to the bin is grain that doesn't make us money. So first off, we're going to identify where the loss is coming from. Is it a pre-harvest loss? These losses are coming from grain on the ground before combine even hits the field. The only way to tell that is to get out in an uncut field and see what kind of grain we've got on the ground. A lot of times we see this coming from weather conditions. Secondly, we need to see, is it a header loss? A lot of these are header adjustments that need to be made, and that's where our header loss comes from. The next three, threshing, separator, and shoe loss, we're all going to see coming out the back of the machine. Threshing is just grain in the head. Separator is we're looking at a rotor loss, so we need to adjust something in the rotor. And then shoe loss, there's loss coming out of the chaffer. So like I said, all three of those, we're going to see losses coming out of the back of the machine. And then the last one is a leakage. And you know, leakage can be a number of things. First off, we need to go in and see to make sure all of our doors and shields are put on properly and do a quick inspection to make sure everything is closed and secured. But also look for torn seals and damaged sheet metal or holes. These all need to be fixed and repaired before accurate measurements of losses can be made. Otherwise, it is difficult to determine where the losses are occurring. How to check for grain leaks? We need to harvest at a normal operating speed and stop the combine, raise up the head, and look on the ground underneath the machine. And then if there's grain on the ground under there, we need to look directly above and to identify where exactly that leak is coming from. Next, we're going to be talking about the Go Harvest app. This right here is what the app looks like up here in the corner. You'll go into it and you'll get a screen that looks like this. This is going to help us calculate grain losses. As we see here, we have the area set on a 1x1 square foot. As you can see right here, we take a 1x1 square foot and count the kernels and whatnot inside that area. Plug that back into the app, and that will be how we'll see grain losses through the app. The Go Harvest app gives you the choice of calculating grain losses in a windrow. If you're using a windrow, clear a 1 foot strip clear across the windrow. You know, estimate the seeds per square foot, or change the Go Harvest app's area to match the square foot measured. As we see here, it's probably going to be a 1x4 foot area, and we're going to count all of the kernels or seeds that we're finding inside that area. And again, that's in the windrow mode. We can also use the spread mode. The Go Harvest app gives you the choice of calculating grain loss in spread mode. We're going to count losses in a 1 foot square at several places behind the machine. Average the seeds you find and enter into the Go Harvest app, or total the seeds and change the area in the Go Harvest app. Like we see in this diagram down here, we have two different squares coming from behind the header, as well as there's three different squares back here behind the combine. You know, that we just want to make sure that we're covering a good area here behind the machine to properly identify where loss is coming from. And again, that's in spread mode. Next, we're going to move into a little bit about setting seed size on 50 and 60 series combines. On 50 and 60 series combines, there's a button down here with 3 dots on it, like you can see. If we want to set the seed size to wheat, we're looking at this middle button right here. I know wheat is a smaller seed size, but it's actually not the smallest. It's going to be this middle one. How we're going to change that is by pushing this button right here to adjust these dots up here accordingly. And like I said, if we want to put it on wheat, we would put it on this middle one and push this accordingly. Next, we're going to be talking about grain loss calibration for 50 and 60 series combines. There is a calibration button. This button is used to calibrate the grain loss total based on current loss levels after the combine is optimized. And that calibration button is right here. Next to that calibration button, there's 2 up and down arrow buttons. What this does is allow us to go back to previous calibrations that we may have already had. But again, we want to emphasize that to calibrate these combines after the machine is optimized. Moving into 70 series combines, what we see here is we're going to have to go in and set the crop type and then be able to set the seed size. So we'll go over here and set this. It's set to barley right now, but say we wanted to set it to wheat, we would go over here and select wheat, and then we could move into our seed size, and we can set the seed size. There's a larger range here that we can set it in. We can go heavier or lighter in our seed size, but we just need to make sure that we have the correct crop type selected first. That was in 70 series combines. Moving into the S600 series combines, very similar to 70 series combines, we need to make sure that we have the correct crop type. Where it says alfalfa here, we would change that to wheat, and then right below it, we would select seed size. So these S600 series combines, very similar to 70 series combines in the fact that we need to make sure that we are selecting the correct crop, and then right below it, selecting seed size. Again, on S600 series combines, this is in a Gen 3 display. We're looking at the grain loss calibration. This blue box right here is our grain loss calibration. This adjusts the machine and header to acceptable loss levels for a particular crop and condition, as well as we have this little box over here with 3 dots on it. That is what took the place of the up and down arrow, so that would be how we would get to our previous grain loss calibration. And this is in the S600 series combines. A little more advanced settings here. We have the Vision Track settings, which would take you to a screen that looks like this. First off, we have this blue box here. This is our shoe and separator balance. This can be used to fine-tune the display if losses appear to come from one area of the machine, but more losses are displayed in other area of machine due to crop conditions. And then we're going to look at this purple box right here. This is our shoe and separator resolution. This allows the operator to modify number of bars shown on the Vision Track display for shoe loss indicator and separator loss indicator. Moving on to S700 series combines. These are a little more simple. All we need to do for setting the crop type is select the crop under the work setup page. We don't need to worry about setting seed size. These combines are very smart, and we've learned through data that it's made much easier just to select the crop type, and the combine will do the rest. The only time we need to worry about seed size is down here when we're looking at the advanced settings and active terrain adjustment. But we are just selecting the crop type and the work setup for now. More on S700 series combines, we're looking at the Gen 4 display. We're going to set the loss monitor performance target. Adjust the combine setting for optimum performance with acceptable grain loss on the ground. So first, we're going to operate the machine at harvesting speeds in normal crop conditions. When at normal speed, push the set current button down here in the corner. What this does is this teaches the machine, this teaches the loss monitor what acceptable losses are and sets loss limit of the summation bar graph down here. Again, on the Gen 4 display, we have this little arrow button up here. If we were to click into that, it would take us to our separator resolution. First, we see the shoe resolution. This allows you to modify the number of bars shown on the corner post display Vision Track for the shoe loss indicator, as well as the separator loss indicator down here. A little bit on Combine Advisor, talking about auto maintain grain loss settings. What we have here is grain loss sensitivity. This controls how fast the system recognizes grain loss before making an automatic change. There are times when we need to modify this. You need to increase sensitivity if you see shoe loss or separator loss and auto maintain is not detecting the issue, as well as decrease sensitivity if auto maintain is detecting a shoe loss or separator loss and the performance of that area is still acceptable to you. So these two sensors right here, the chaffer and the separator grain loss sensors, are not adjusted by the calibration procedure we just discussed. They are live and excellent indicators of where grain loss is occurring. Most machines will have just one sensor here, but the new ones we're seeing 2 sensors here. In this specific scenario, we see that we need to adjust our chaffer based off current grain loss and that would help with grain on the ground. So up until now, the current setting for grain loss is based off time. When time-based loss is selected, the grain loss is calculated strictly based on the number of seed strikes detected during a time interval. As you can see here, we're looking at 10 seeds on the ground at 2 miles an hour in 4 seconds, and then this bottom one is 10 seeds on the ground at 4 miles an hour in 4 seconds. We see here seed strikes versus time readouts would show the same loss, but the ground would be different. But starting in model year 22, all combines coming from the factory are going to be area based. And moving forward, Prairieland suggests that we change all combines to area based. So when area based loss is selected, the grain loss is calculated using header width and ground speed. Area based should be the most consistent display algorithm option when harvesting over a range of different speeds and crop conditions. This setting best represents actual grain loss, which show up out of the back of the machine. Grain seed strikes by area roughly indicate what you see on the ground. So this is another graph of what area based would be calculating, excuse me, same area covered, but just a much more accurate reading of grain loss coming out of the combine. So like I said, starting in model year 22, combines will come from the factory, set on area based, and moving forward, Prairieland recommends that we do change over to area based for a much more accurate reading. And that's all I've got. Thank you.